Salve a tutti e a tutte. Inizierei questa conferenza internazionale, intanto ringraziando tutti e tutti per essere qui oggi, sia in presenza che online. Abbiamo organizzato questa conferenza internazionale tra tutte le realtà palestinesi in Europa, in questo giorno della Nakba, ed è il secondo anno di fila che lo organizziamo assistendo purtroppo in presa diretta al genocidio del nostro popolo. Nel 1948 è iniziata quella che viene definita la Nakba, che in arabo significa catastrofe, che ha distrutto 500 villaggi e ha forzato all'esodo più di 700.000 palestinesi, che sono stati costretti ad abbandonare le loro case, diventando non solo profughi, ma soprattutto esuli. E quindi da ottobre 2023 che va imperterrito, senza che quella famosa comunità internazionale agisca in alcun modo, il proseguimento di questa politica coloniale sionista in Palestina. Abbiamo sempre detto che la Nakba non è appunto un momento iniziato e conclusosi nel 1948, ma è, ma è appunto una tragedia, come tutte le altre, che non sono mai finite, un continuo, ed è ancora viva. La nostra prospettiva è sempre stata che il colonialismo è quindi un processo che ha un obiettivo, ossia la spoliazione della terra palestinese dai palestinesi, e che questo processo non si sarebbe fermato finché non avrebbe raggiunto questo suo obiettivo. Dal 7 ottobre del 2023 il sionismo ha reso chiaro che questa nostra interpretazione non solo è giusta, ma che la responsabilità di questo processo coloniale è da addossare a tutti gli stati complici con il nostro genocidio. Oggi ricordiamo la Nakba non solo come evento del passato, ma appunto, ripeto, come evento vivo, scavato quindi non solo nel passato, ma soprattutto nel nostro presente. E oggi ricordiamo la Nakba perché il colonialismo ha avuto le proprie mire su tutta la Palestina e non si fermerà finché non controllerà tutta la Palestina storica. E per farlo ha bisogno di creare dei vuoti. Ha bisogno del vuoto a Gaza per poter costruire le proprie colonie, proprio come ha fatto nel 1948 con quei 500 villaggi fino ad oggi, ma soprattutto ha bisogno del vuoto abitativo, ovvero dell'assenza dei palestinesi, per poter ripopolare quelle terre con i loro coloni. E se questo vuoto non è possibile attraverso l'infame esodo forzato, subentrano i metodi più brutali, più feroci, come la pulizia etnica ed il genocidio. Ma il vuoto non è solo un vuoto fisico, il vuoto vuole occupare ogni spazio. È un vuoto che vuole occupare anche lo spazio della memoria e dell'identità. E per il sionismo non solo non è ammessa la presenza dei palestinesi in Palestina, ma la stessa esistenza di un'identità palestinese che possa reclamare anche al di fuori dei confini palestinesi una connessione con la terra nativa, con la Palestina. E da qui, è da questo che nasce la repressione che viviamo qui in Europa. A essere sotto attacco è un'identità che esce da schemi coloniali, che rifiuta il ruolo di sottomesso che il colonialismo vuole imporgli. Noi qui come palestinesi, come arabi, partecipiamo alla stessa lotta che ora è in atto in Palestina, proprio perché il colonialismo non si ferma ai confini palestinesi, va oltre ai confini e l'occupazione si esprime in ogni forma possibile. E la nostra risposta non può che essere la lotta in qualsiasi luogo ci troviamo contro ogni forma che il colonialismo assume. La nostra lotta deve essere nelle strade, deve essere nelle università, dove il sionismo occupa gli spazi del sapere per sviluppare un pensiero coloniale che permette anche la costruzione delle armi che oggi vengono usate sui nostri popoli. Ma soprattutto la nostra lotta qui deve concentrarsi sulle forme più evidenti ed esplicite di supporto al sionismo e di complicità con il genocidio. Viviamo in paesi che inviano ancora oggi le stesse armi che vengono usate per bombardare il nostro popolo. L'Italia, in cui ci troviamo oggi, è il terzo fornitore di armi ad Israele dopo Stati Uniti e Germania. La nostra lotta qui deve essere rivolta a fermare questo flusso continuo e ininterrotto di armi. Questo deve essere il ruolo della diaspora. Le ondate di mobilitazione studentesca, le mobilitazioni dei lavoratori attraverso gli scioperi che hanno bloccato ferrovie e porti, mostrano il potere collettivo che abbiamo per interrompere la normalità e sfidare la complicità. La lotta per una Palestina libera è intrinsecamente connessa alle lotte più ampie, quindi non sono solo le realtà palestinesi e le realtà solidali con la Palestina e con la causa palestinese, ma questa è una lotta che si intrinseca con tutte le lotte che vogliono giustizia, dignità e la liberazione ovunque. E quindi nel commemorare la Nakba oggi rinnoviamo il nostro impegno alla resistenza non solo con le parole, ma anche con le azioni. Grazie.
Grazie Sara per l'introduzione e ringrazio gli ospiti che sono qua con noi oggi. Io mi occuperò della moderazione, che sarà una moderazione mista, per cui dopo ogni intervento ci sarà una breve sintesi, una breve traduzione, in modo da rifare un pochino il punto su quelli che saranno gli interventi, che saranno per la maggior parte in inglese. La conferenza, come sapete, sarà strutturata in tre sezioni. Ci sarà la prima sezione intitolata Lotta di liberazione dal fronte occidentale, in cui la nostra prima ospite sarà Anna di Rescop, a seguire Ines di PYM Britain, che si deve ancora connettere con noi, e Samar di ILCS SC, il cui intervento sarà diviso in due parti. La seconda sezione sarà sull'embargo popolare e la lotta di liberazione, e rispetto a questa sezione sentiremo Maren di BNC, e infine la terza sezione invece che ci permetterà di avere uno sguardo sulla Palestina con un intervento della Cisgiordania con il giornalista Mohamed Qafesha, e un secondo intervento sempre di Samar di European Legal Support Center, che concluderà insieme a noi l'incontro di oggi. Um, Passo all'inglese, so I want to thank you all guys for being with us here today. It's very important for us to share this moment with you and to have an international overview about what's happening right now, and like what does the Nakba mean, and what does fighting the Nakba and the genocide today. So we're going to start with the first section, and the first guest will be Anna from Reskop. So I will give you the floor in just 2 seconds. I will briefly introduce our guest, Anna di Rescop, che sarà la prima ospite che interverrà. Fa parte di questa realtà, Rescop, che è una realtà solidale contro l'occupazione in Palestina, che opera in Spagna. Si tratta di un gruppo che ha portato avanti un importante lavoro in Spagna, che come molti di noi sanno è uno di quei paesi che sta applicando l'embargo sulle armi. La domanda con cui introdurremo l'intervento partirà dal presupposto che negli scorsi mesi si è parlato molto del caso della Spagna nell'ambito dell'embargo contro le armi, per cui chiederemo ad Anna di ricostruirci cosa è successo in Spagna, indicando anche il ruolo di Rescop nella costruzione dell'embargo, e parlandoci anche del ruolo importante che la pressione popolare ha avuto nella riuscita dell'embargo delle armi, in quanto si tratta di un caso di embargo non solo istituzionale, ma anche popolare. So I'll translate the question now for you. So many of us have seen or heard about the arms embargo in Spain, and we know that you guys as RESCOP have played an important role in building and creating this embargo. So we would like to ask you what actually happened in Spain in this regard, and what kind of role has RESCOP had in this process. And we will also would like to know what the embargo. So we also know that the embargo in Spain is not just an institutional one, since it was obtained also thanks to the popular mobilization. So what was the role of the popular mobilization in the Spanish arms embargo? The floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Grazie, for organizing and for having us here. I would like maybe go a step back and make an important remark. Spain did not impose an arms embargo. We do not have an arms embargo, a formal arms embargo, despite all the declarations from the different ministers. Even like yesterday, the Spanish president said that Spain does not trade with genocidal states. Despite all these words, all these political declarations, the relations in terms of military and security cooperation between Spain and Israel since October 2023 remain practically the same. We are still selling weapons. We are still buying weapons. Only since October 2023, we expended with public money, taxpayers' money, more than 1,000 millions of euros in contracting Israeli military and security companies to provide the so-called security to the Spanish state. We keep allowing the transit of vessels with weapons and energy that are fueling the ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people. So Spain did not impose an arms embargo on Israel, and I would like to be very clear on that. That's why we keep pressuring the government to do so. We did have certain measures that were taken by the government thanks to the popular mobilization, and that was really key and fundamental in achieving these demands and in having these changes in the institutional politics of the Spanish state. For instance, just like a couple of weeks ago, we had a contract that was cancelled, a contract for about 6 million euros, where Spain was buying bullets from Israel. And thanks to popular pressure and popular mobilization, this contract was cancelled, but is one contract among 23 contracts that have been signed only since October 2023. 9 of these contracts are still pending of being resolved, meaning that they can still be cancelled, but the government only cancelled one of these 23 contracts that Spain has signed with Israel only in the last 18th month or so. That's one thing. Also, thanks to the popular mobilization, we managed to ban several vessels from docking at the Spanish ports. For instance, overseas Santorini, which was transporting jet fuel from the US to Israel, didn't dock in the port of Algeciras in the south of Spain, thanks to the sustained popular mobilization. Borcun didn't dock in Cartagena, also about a year ago now. And we have a few examples of certain vessels, certain shipments that did not dock, but this is not a policy. This is not a state policy. Therefore, we keep asking and demanding and urging the government to impose a full arms embargo, and we are doing that through different tactics. One of them is popular mobilization. We've been organizing, I think I can say now, one of the largest popular mobilizations in the recent history of the Spanish state, with monthly protests that are coordinated across all the Spanish state, with coordinated demonstrations in more than 100 cities every month. Just last Saturday, we had a massive protest in Madrid where people from all the different territories gathered together, and we were more than 100,000 people under the same demand and arms trade with Israel. And all this popular mobilization, all this popular pressure is what is making the government change and taking certain steps to end this military and security cooperation that they currently have with Israel. Yesterday, we just had a positive news that is one of the other measures that we've been working together, which is more connected to the institutional and political advocacy that we are doing. That is that we submitted a bill to change the current arms trade law that we have in Spain to introduce the concept of arms embargo. So we could regulate by law when an arms embargo should be imposed according to the Spanish legislation, because now as I am sharing some examples, it is not clear. It's up to the political will of the government or the ministries or certain politicians, but we want this to be regulated by law. So we submitted a proposal to amend the current legislation and introduce this figure of the arms embargo for countries that are being investigated on international courts for genocide, war crimes, or crimes against humanity. So an arms embargo can be automatically imposed on those countries. And this law, the first step for this law to be approved is going to be voted next Tuesday on the Spanish Congress. So this is again like another positive step, another promising step for this embargo to be fully approved and fully implemented. But again, all the baseline of this and all the force, like the driving force for this is the popular pressure that the different groups and movements are sustaining since the launching of the campaign. And I think one very positive aspect of this campaign is that we managed to engage a lot of different actors from groups working in climate justice, feminist groups, neighbors associations, trade unions, under the same demand of ending arms trade with Israel. And I think that is part of the success. We managed to put that on the political agenda. Actually, when this news about the contract that at the end was canceled came up, it was an institutional crisis. The government is now a coalition government here in Spain, and parties that were part of this coalition government were saying that if the contract was not canceled, they will withdraw their support to the government and break the coalition. So I think this is a reflection of how this demand and this campaign managed to really mainstream this demand in all sectors of the Spanish civil society, and transform this demand into something that is a state policy. Because one of the main demands that we are doing in relation to this arms trade is that we don't want to focus only on the weapons that Spain is selling to Israel, because this is really like the smallest part of the cooperation between Spain and Israel. We want to focus and stress the part related to the weapons and security systems and materials that Spain is buying from Israel, trying to expose that when you are buying weapons and security trainings from Israel, you are not just buying commodities, you are buying a system of repression that is built on a settler colonial apartheid and genocidal regime. And this is what we really want to raise here, to make the connection between the repression in Palestine and the connection elsewhere, because we don't want that model of security for Palestine, for Spain, or for basically any human being in this world. And I think that is something that is helping into fostering these relations and synergies with other movements. But yeah, we are getting closer to our goal, and step by step we will increase the pressure in the government and different sectors, but still is a long way to go.
Thank you very much for your talk. I will briefly translate your speech. Giusto per fare una sintesi dell'intervento di Anna, ci ha spiegato che la Spagna in realtà non ha imposto un embargo formale istituzionale, nonostante le dichiarazioni dei ministri dicano diversamente. Per cui la situazione attuale è che si vendono ancora le armi in Spagna. Gli elementi importanti sono che la mobilitazione popolare è stata cruciale nel creare pressioni sul governo che sta portando a una serie di vittorie. Una di queste è che un contratto su 23 di quelli che sono stati firmati a seguito del 7 ottobre dalla Spagna, contratti che hanno ad oggetto la vendita di armi, uno di questi contratti è stato risolto. Tra le pratiche che stanno mettendo in atto c'è da un lato le mobilitazioni di massa, per cui stanno organizzando mensilmente in più di 100 città manifestazioni che sono sempre più partecipate. Un altro elemento importante che hanno sottoposto al Parlamento europeo, al Parlamento spagnolo, una proposta di legge con cui regolare l'embargo sulle armi che verrà votata a breve. Un ultimo elemento è che non vogliono mettere l'accento solo sulle armi che vengono vendute, ma anche sul sistema di sicurezza che viene importato da Israele, quindi mettendola sul piano non solo del è sbagliato vendere le armi a Israele, ma anche quelle tecniche di sicurezza, quei sistemi di sicurezza che vengono importati, fanno sì che venga importata anche quel sistema di repressione che Israele mette in atto in Palestina. Grazie ancora Anna. Possiamo passare al secondo intervento di questa prima sezione con Ines di PYM Britain. Una breve introduzione. Ines è la persona che coordina la ricerca in Inghilterra. Il PYM è stata l'organizzazione che ha promosso la campagna Maersk, che come molti di noi sanno è un elemento importante nel percorso e nella lotta sull'embargo sulle armi. Lascio subito la parola a Ines. La domanda con cui iniziamo è sulla campagna Maersk, per cui una spiegazione della campagna Maersk, la centralità di questa campagna nella mobilitazione contro il commercio, contro la vendita e il trasporto di armi, e poi con una seconda domanda andremo ad affrontare la situazione in Inghilterra più strettamente. So I'll translate the question for you, Ines. Thank you for being with us here today. So if you're okay with that, we wanted to divide this section with you in two parts with two questions. So the first question will be about the Maersk campaign more in general. So why is it important? Why the arms embargo is such an important thing for the Palestinian struggle, especially from the diaspora point of view? And why is the Maersk campaign crucial and important in the mobilization against the arms transport? And what kind of tools does this campaign give us? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, so as Miriam said, my name's Inez and I'm with the PYM. And yeah, here to talk about Mask Off Maersk, which, if people aren't familiar, is our transnational campaign calling on Maersk, the logistics company, to cut ties with genocide and to stop shipping military cargo to the Zionist entity of Israel. And I'm sure people know, but just to briefly introduce the PYM, we're the largest organization of Palestinian and Arab youth organizing for the liberation of Palestine from the far diaspora. And we exist to reassume our responsibility for our national liberation struggle in exile. And we really see ourselves not in solidarity with our people in Palestine and the region, but actually as fighting another front by confronting Zionism from within the belly of the beast. So I'll talk a little bit about why we decided to wage this campaign against Maersk, and about some of the wins the campaign has seen so far and like the strategy that has led to those wins. So yeah, so first, like, why did we decide to wage this campaign? We actually decided to target a logistics company before we decided on Maersk specifically. And this was for a few different reasons. But all of these reasons, I think, kind of speak to the importance of the campaign and the interventions it's making. So the first is this idea of a people's arms embargo. Now, obviously, like, the first few months of the genocide really confirmed what we already knew, which is that the political class of Western imperialist nations will never act in the interest of the people. And so if we really want justice and liberation for the Palestinian people and to free ourselves from the chokehold of Western imperialism, we need to actually take matters into our own hands. And this means that we're not asking the ruling classes to enforce an arms embargo. We're saying that we, the people, have the power to actually enact one from below. And this is the first reason that we launched the campaign, because we really wanted to wage a campaign that could enforce this people's arms embargo. So then we started thinking about like what strategic sectors would enable us to enforce a people's arms embargo. And the first and most obvious answer is weapons manufacturers, right? Like we've seen amazing campaigns taken up by different pro-Palestinian organizations around the world, shutting down and picketing weapons factories. And we know that like this has really moved our community and has been really effective. But these are campaigns that like a lot of them have targets that exist at a local level. So in Britain, for example, there's a huge campaign against Elbit by Palestine Action. There are campaigns against Lockheed Martin in the US. But we thought, like, what is it that links all of these weapons manufacturers together? Like, who brings the different components that are made in all of these different countries around the world and delivers them to the US for assembly and then to the Zionist entity for its genocide? And so the obvious answer became to target logistics, because logistics companies are the common denominator between all of the arms manufacturers. And so this is like the second reason for the campaign is that we see logistics as an industry as like a strategic sector to target. And our early research showed that Maersk was involved both in the transport of components to the US for assembly and also the transportation of like completed military cargo to the Zionist entity for the genocide. And this kind of leads to the third factor, which is that we decided also that we wanted to target a commercial logistics company specifically. And this is because, like, firstly, there are just more pressure points to target a commercial company, which I think will become a bit clearer when I speak later about the fronts of the campaign. But also because transporting weapons components and military cargo, because it's a commercial company, it's like that element of the business is only one small part of their business, rather than it being like their entire business. And so it's more realistic for that part of the business to be isolated and dropped rather than like shutting the company down entirely, which is obviously like if you're targeting a weapons manufacturer or a logistics company that ships almost exclusively weapons like Zim, you know, to have a successful campaign, you need to shut them down entirely. In this case, we're just trying to like isolate and drop this aspect of the business. But beyond like these practicalities, there's also like a historical legacy of organizing against logistics in achieving freedom and liberation. And so this is kind of the fourth reason, is this history of like, for example, the Maritime Unions Against Apartheid, which was a collective of maritime unions in Denmark, Australia, and Britain that played like a really critical role in the fall of apartheid in South Africa by enforcing an arms embargo on ships that were enabling apartheid. And so we see this campaign as being informed by and building on that historical legacy as well. And then the last reason for waging the campaign is that logistics is a key artery of imperialism. And so targeting logistics also enables us to raise popular consciousness on imperialism and monopoly capitalism. So that's kind of like why logistics. But in terms of why Maersk specifically, it was because we saw a campaign against Maersk as a campaign that could be both winnable and impactful. Winnable because, like I said, it's a small part of their business that we can pressure them to drop. But also impactful because Maersk has been like a really key partner in the genocide. It's also an industry lead, which means they kind of set the industry standard. So they were like the first logistics company to pull out of the Red Sea, and the others all followed. And so if Maersk cuts ties with genocide, this sends a signal to the entire industry that doing business with Zionism and with genocide is not profitable. So I'm going to talk quickly just through like a recent campaign win that I think kind of answers your question, Miriam, in terms of like showing the power of the campaign in enacting an arms embargo from below. So this story kind of begins with a research report that we released in November of last year. And this was the first research report that we produced as the Mask Off Maersk campaign. And it basically tracked Maersk shipments from the US that were to or on behalf of the Israeli Ministry of Defense in the first year of the genocide. And we found that in that year, Maersk had shipped millions of kilograms of military goods to the Israeli military across over 2,000 shipments that were like on regular weekly trips from New Jersey to Spain. And then in Spain, this cargo would be transshipped, so like moved onto another vessel that would complete the route to the Zionist entity. And the cargo that we found Maersk shipping on this route included hulls, engines, specialized parts for armored personnel carriers and tactical vehicles, and also like aircraft parts and projectile systems. So like a whole range of military cargo. And like I said, so they were sending these shipments once a week from New Jersey to Spain. And this was particularly significant because, as we just heard, while there wasn't like an official arms embargo policy on Israel, there had been kind of statements to this effect in Spain, meaning that Maersk was flouting this Spanish policy by transiting through its ports with military cargo. And so when we released the research, we also sent a briefing to the Spanish government. And the Spanish government responded basically by saying that, like, if the information is confirmed, then the necessary measures will be taken. And so they then independently verified our research. And a couple of days later, two Maersk ships, and the next day, a third ship, all carrying military cargo destined to the Zionist entity, were denied harbor at a port in Spain. And so by publishing this research and like with pressure from progressive and left forces in Spain, we made sure basically that Spain wasn't able to get away with skirting this commitment to the arms embargo. And these ships being turned away basically sent Maersk like scrambling through the Mediterranean, trying to figure out like how to get this military cargo to Israel. But like the mask already had been taken off, and Spain's refusal to let the ships dock sparked popular resistance in the places that the ships diverted to. And so from Portugal to Morocco, where these ships went, people took to the streets and to the ports, chanting that whoever welcomes these ships is not one of us. And these diverted ships rerouted and docked, like I said, in Morocco to drop off this cargo, where they were going to be, the cargo was meant to be like put on a different ship to finish the route to Israel. But they were met with like really wide popular resistance there. There were thousands of people protesting outside the ports, and 10 Moroccan dock workers refused to load the ships with the military cargo. Some of them were fired. And though the cargo eventually was loaded, the workers basically risked their lives and their livelihoods to stand with Palestinians and to refuse to be cogs in the machine of the genocide. And we saw this again last month when a Maersk ship carrying F-35 parts was delayed again after 3 port worker unions in Morocco put out public calls to block the ship. And again, we saw mass mobilizations and workers taking this brave and principled stand against the genocide by refusing to work the ships. And so the reason that I give that example really is because that is like exactly what a people's arms embargo looks like. It's people taking matters into their own hands and actually intervening to stop Maersk and to stop their government's role in the genocide. And these developments obviously are really exciting, but they are just like one part of a multi-pronged kind of multifaceted campaign strategy that I'm going to talk through very, very quickly because it's really what enabled these wins. So obviously, with the campaign, the strategy is to make it costly for Maersk to continue doing business with genocide by pressuring them through multiple avenues. And the campaign has basically several fronts. So if the strategy is like the what of the campaign, then the fronts are the how we achieve it. And each of these fronts has like a different purpose and different tactics. So to just run through them quickly, these fronts are media, mobilization, labor, shareholder, legal, diplomatic, boycott and divestment, and then also kind of research underpinning all of them. And obviously, I don't have time to kind of talk through all of them, but I think the example that I just gave about Spain and Morocco kind of shows how like pushing all of these different fronts at once is really important. So we have like media amplifying the research and highlighting the wins. We had mass mobilizations at Maersk sites. On the labor front, organizing workers and popularizing the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions position on the handling of arms destined to Israel as a Palestinian-led picket line. And yeah, a diplomatic strategy, pressuring governments to uphold their commitments and so on. And so I think like what I really just want to highlight about this is like the diversity of tactics that the campaign and the different fronts enable and how important that is. And that's important because we believe, right, that the masses are the makers of history. And so, like, with this campaign, in line with this mass-based approach, it's not narrow. It's not like a traditional block the votes campaign, and it doesn't employ a singular tactic. It's a mass campaign. And it's also like not a mass campaign in the sense that many people are used to of like consumer boycotts that kind of make people think that we have power just like as an individual consumer. We realized that Maersk not being a brand on a shelf actually is not a limitation for the campaign because our power doesn't lie in whether or not we buy something. It lies in us collectively getting organized. And so that is like why it's important really that the campaign has all these different fronts with like all these different kinds of work for people to take up because it's a strategic campaign that's concerned with organizing people, right? It's a campaign for the popular masses for a people's arms embargo. And I think that ultimately is like the importance of the campaign. Of course, it's about intervening in the supply chain of genocide in a very immediate sense. But the campaign also is a vehicle to organize people and to build power against imperialism in the imperial core in the long term. And it's through campaigns like this that we actually will see politicized masses in political organizations embracing this like diversity of tactics that I've talked about, kind of working in tandem to actually effectively confront imperialism here in the imperial core. And that I think is how, we can achieve not just an arms embargo, but actually a people's arms embargo from below.
Thank you so much, Ines. I will briefly translate and we will carry on with the second question. Ci sono un sacco di dettagli interessanti rispetto al quadro che ci ha offerto Ines. Innanzitutto, ha spiegato le motivazioni del perché è stata scelta la Maersk. Inizialmente si è partiti dall'idea di colpire un'azienda della logistica di guerra in particolare, perché quello che lega i produttori di armi è proprio il settore della logistica, che è il comune denominatore tra i diversi produttori di armi. Questo tipo di campagna permette di colpire il sionismo con le mobilitazioni popolari, che sono lo strumento che si sono resi, è il tipo di mobilitazione che permette di andare a mobilitarsi sul tema della complicità, dato che si è preso atto dal 7 ottobre in poi che la complicità delle istituzioni e i governi occidentali era un dato. E, sulla scelta di prendere di mira un'azienda di logistica, non solo un'azienda della logistica, ma un'azienda commerciale che non si occupa solo del trasporto di armi, ma che si occupa di trasporto commerciale, tra cui il trasporto di armi e di cargo militari. Questa scelta è stata giustificata in questo modo. Il fatto di attaccare un'azienda come quella della Maersk, che non si occupa solo del trasporto di armi, permette di isolare questo tipo di trasporto, di attaccarlo, di renderlo non conveniente, di renderlo sempre più oneroso per questa azienda, al punto da costringerla a ritirarsi da questa parte di commercio, senza costringerla a ritirarsi dal mercato. Questo permette. Questo tipo di campagna, quindi con questo target, permette di andare ad isolare un target e offrire tramite la campagna un target che sia realizzabile. E, sulle altre motivazioni che hanno giustificato la scelta di questo target, c'è innanzitutto un dato storico per cui l'organizzazione e le mobilitazioni che vanno ad intaccare la logistica di guerra ricalcano anche quello che è un precedente storico, come ad esempio le forme di embargo sulle armi che erano state condotte in solidarietà e lotta contro l'apartheid in Sudafrica. Inoltre, un'ulteriore giustificazione, un ulteriore motivo è il legame tra la logistica di guerra e l'imperialismo, in quanto la logistica di guerra, il trasporto delle armi, funge ed è un'arteria fondamentale dell'imperialismo. Un ulteriore elemento riguarda invece il fatto che aziende come quelle della Maersk sono un leader dell'industria e il fatto di attaccare anche la reputazione, oltre che le tasche di queste aziende, permette di mandare un segnale alle altre aziende, seppur non leaders di questo settore, che operano sempre in questa fetta di settore e permette di mandare un segnale in questo modo e di rendere sempre più sconveniente e sempre più oneroso il trasporto di armi e la collaborazione in generale con Israele. Un precedente molto importante che è stato spiegato riguarda la ricerca che era stata svolta dal PYM sul trasporto di armi, in particolare la tratta tra il New Jersey e la Spagna, che prevedeva il trasporto di armi di diverso tipo di materiale bellico una volta a settimana. È stato costruito un report, un fascicolo che è stato inoltrato al governo spagnolo, con cui ci si è messi in dialogo anche con l'intermediazione di altri gruppi militanti e politici in Spagna, che hanno fatto in modo che ci si accertasse che effettivamente il contenuto di queste navi fosse questo, in quanto la Maersk chiaramente, come altre aziende, altre aziende di logistica che trasportano armi, non dichiarano il contenuto delle navi. Tramite questo report e le pressioni popolari che sono state create, fomentate in conseguenza, il governo spagnolo ha bloccato, ha impedito l'attracco di 3 navi che trasportavano materiale di questo tipo. Contestualmente si sono sollevate mobilitazioni molto importanti sia in Portogallo che in Marocco, che avrebbero funto da porti alternativi, e questo poi ha portato alle importanti mobilitazioni che ci sono state in particolare in Marocco e la forte repressione, ma rispetto a questo poi scenderemo nel dettaglio più tardi con Maren di BNC. Un ultimo dato riguarda la diversità delle tattiche che vengono messe in campo tramite questa campagna. La diversità di tattiche permette alle masse di mobilitarsi nel modo più efficace. Infatti, la campagna non è pensata come una tradizionale campagna per bloccare le navi e nemmeno una tradizionale campagna di boicottaggio, in quanto si tratta di una campagna che permette e richiede l'organizzazione delle masse e non solo il boicottaggio del bene inteso in senso di non consumo del prodotto, che è una forma di boicottaggio individuale, mentre in questo caso si tratta di una forma di boicottaggio che richiede l'organizzazione necessariamente delle masse. E con questo possiamo passare alla seconda domanda, che riguarda invece il caso più recente inglese. Nelle ultime 2 settimane abbiamo avuto notizia di un fascicolo che è stato pubblicato in Inghilterra, che scopre il velo sul trasporto di armi, di F-35 in particolare, dall'Inghilterra a Israele. Si tratta di un trasporto, un'implicazione che fino a questo momento era stata negata dal governo inglese, ma che tramite la ricerca dei compagni e delle compagne in Inghilterra è stata messa alla luce recentemente, e su cui adesso chiediamo a Ines di approfondire. So I will go through with the second question, and we wanted now to have a focus on the British case about the F-35. So we know that there have been some news in the UK about the complicity of the UK government and its lies about the arms shipments and transport. And so we wanted to ask you what's happening right now in the UK. What have you guys discovered through your research? How are you mobilizing with regard to this new matter of the F-35s in the UK? And how are you building the campaign in Britain more broadly?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you kind of alluded to, we recently did a piece of research and released a research report exposing arms exports from Britain to Israel as the PYM, and also alongside Progressive International and Workers for a Free Palestine. And the report basically details the scale of arms exports from here to the Zionist entity, and essentially reveals that government ministers have lied to the public and to Parliament about Britain's role in the genocide. So I'll give a bit of context so that you can kind of understand like the meaning of the findings, and then I'll talk quickly through the findings and about the work we've done around releasing the report and the impact that's had so far for organizing towards an arms embargo. So for some context, the research basically came out of the Mask Off Maersk campaign, where we've been doing research into Maersk in Britain and the supply chain of weapons here. But it ended up being not about Maersk specifically, but about Britain's supply of arms to the Zionist entity more broadly. And also for context, like information about arms exports is very, very hard to access here. The government releases like very little data about it. Everything is very opaque. And how it works essentially is that like it's not like in the US where it's these like direct kind of government aid transfers of weapons to Israel. It's like companies based here that are producing and selling arms to Israel, and they need licenses from the government to do so. So the government grants these licenses. They don't publish export data. They publish like a bit of data about these licenses. Not all of that is publicly available either. What happened last year is that the government suspended like quite a small number of these licenses, where it found that these were weapons that could be being used to break international law in Gaza, according to the government. And when they announced those suspensions, they also announced that though they excluded the F-35 program from the suspension, meaning that they could continue to send F-35 parts that were produced in Britain around the world that ultimately would end up on Israeli fighter jets. They said they were going to continue to allow that program to go ahead, but what they did do was they banned the direct export of F-35 components from Britain to Israel. So they're saying like they can continue to send F-35 components like to the US and elsewhere, but not straight to Israel itself. And then following those suspensions, government ministers like repeatedly said in Parliament that no F-35 components had been sent directly to Israel. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, told the House of Commons that after these suspensions that like much of what Britain was sending to Israel, he said, is defensive in nature. He said that Britain was sending helmets and goggles, and that what was being sent is not, he said, what would routinely be described as arms. But the evidence that we outline in our report actually shows that the UK has sent thousands of goods to Israel, which are defined internationally as arms by customs codes that are recognized both by the UK and by Israel. So the kind of headline findings of the report is basically that using new data from the Israel Tax Authority, the report highlights a wide range of shipments of military goods, munitions of war, arms, and aircraft parts from the UK to Israel since the beginning of the genocide. And like I said, the government really like shrouds this issue in secrecy, and there's very little data available. So the data that the report is based on is actually Israeli tax data. It's information that Israel publishes about imports. And based on that import data, we found items arriving from the UK in a range of categories. So we found 150,000 bullets that were sent from the UK to Israel in October 2023 at the beginning of the genocide. A further 9,000 munitions that were listed as bombs, grenades, torpedoes, mines, missiles, similar munitions of war and parts thereof. We saw 150 items listed as rocket launchers, flamethrowers, grenade launchers, and similar projectors, and 299 items listed as tanks and other armored fighting vehicles and parts of such vehicles. And then the last finding really is that we found evidence indicating that direct shipments of F-35 components from the UK to Israel actually continued and are ongoing despite the suspension in September 2024. And so, like I said, what this reveals essentially is that government ministers have been lying to the public and misleading Parliament. But like, why is this important? I mean, I think what is important is for us to actually ground ourselves in like the political objectives of this report and the broader strategy around how we released it. So in the PYM, we understand like our fundamental role really in the imperial core to be generating political and social crisis within the British ruling class. And what this means is it means making continued support for the genocide politically, socially, and economically untenable, right? It means creating further divisions, ruptures, and conflict for and among the ruling class, the British government, and the Labour Party, which is the party in power. And so the objective of the report is to do exactly that. It's to generate and deepen crisis in those places. And so similar to what I was saying about Maersk, we've employed kind of a multi-pronged strategy to make the report as effective as possible at doing precisely this and at building unity also in the Palestine movement here through this process. So with all of this work around the report, we've been pushing kind of three clear demands. So one is for the UK government to disclose the details of all UK arms exports to Israel. The second is for David Lammy to resign as Foreign Secretary. And the third is for a total and immediate arms embargo on Israel. And so, yeah, like I said, there's kind of different fronts of work pushing these demands. So I'll just say a little bit about these now. So the first one is media. So when we published the report, we released our findings in an exclusive with The Guardian, which is like one of the biggest mainstream newspapers in the UK. And this was really important because like it's from these outlets is like where the government feels pressure. We also had like a lot of coverage in other outlets, and we prepared agitational media for social media to like popularize our findings and our demands. And we had like a group of spokespeople from the PYM and elsewhere in the movement doing interviews about the report when it was released. The second front is mobilization. So like a couple of days after the report was released, we had a mobilization outside the Foreign Office, which is like one of the government departments responsible for these arms licenses and exports. And this really like got people out on the streets, obviously outraged about our findings. It gave us an opportunity to like popularize the findings of the research and to build this like public pressure against the government. We also have like a parliamentary strategy around the report. So on this front, we've been in contact with several MPs, including Jeremy Corbyn and other MPs. We coordinated an MP letter. So this was like a letter signed by over 40 MPs calling for transparency from David Lammy and from the government. We've had an MP asking a question in Parliament already, and we're organising more of those. And we're organising like a parliamentary briefing in the Houses of Parliament next week to get more MPs on board. And this is really exciting because it means like that what we're able to do is actually to heighten contradictions within Parliament and within the Labour Party through the report. So there's already like a kind of crisis in the Labour Party with splits forming around like their policies on the genocide, but also like benefits being cut and lots of other issues. And so we're kind of like widening this divide through agitating around the report. And there's also like a mass element to this where we're organizing like a kind of template letter that people can send to their MPs through different organizations. Then we've also been working on like the Labour front. So we've been doing worker outreach with civil servants. When the report was released, we printed off hundreds of copies and we handed them out outside the relevant government departments, so the Foreign Office that I mentioned, and also the Department for Business and Trade. And for that, we worked with PCS, which is like the main union for civil servants. And we know from them that this strategy is really important because there is like existing unrest within these departments where civil servants are like unhappy about the government's policies and they're worried about like being implicated in war crimes. And so again, we're trying to heighten this through like popularizing our findings among civil servants and helping to unionize that workforce. And then lastly, there's like a legal strategy around the report. So we've had senior lawyers who are like working on other legal cases related to UK arms exports, helping us with developing this legal strategy. We've had senior lawyers providing comment for media coverage, which really like strengthens the reporting around our research, and really like again kind of concerns the government more. And we'll also have lawyers writing a formal legal opinion on our findings to be used like in the parliamentary briefing. So I just wanted to talk through all of these because I think like in some ways this research confirms what we already knew, right? Like we have been saying for a long time that the UK government is playing an active role in the genocide, but what the research has done is given us like an evidence base to energize the movement and to unite the movement and like hold the government accountable. And so I think the importance of the report has really been this, like to energize the movement, and like giving people something to agitate around, and to also like really unite the entire movement around this demand for an arms embargo specifically through this strategy that kind of covers all of these bases, but all towards the end of, like I said, deepening crisis around Zionism for the British ruling class.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the details and like the explanation that you gave us, also about your research. It gives us very important inputs for us as well. Molto brevemente è stato fatto un lavoro di ricerca che ha permesso di smascherare quelle che erano le false dichiarazioni del governo e dei ministri che erano state rilasciate fino ad ora. In particolare l'anno scorso il governo aveva sospeso il trasporto di alcune armi e comunque le dichiarazioni ufficiali prevedevano che che fosse vietato il trasporto diretto di F-35 verso Israele, ma non verso altri paesi. Tramite la ricerca che è stata fatta si è scoperto che in realtà queste dichiarazioni non erano veritiere. A partire dai risultati delle ricerche sono state messe in campo tutta una serie di strumenti, dalla pressione tramite media, le manifestazioni, lettere firmate da parlamentari, interrogazioni parlamentari che stanno spingendo per far emergere le contraddizioni all'interno delle istituzioni inglesi. E tra le richieste che si fanno, tra le istanze che si portano avanti, c'è innanzitutto l'embargo totale sulle armi verso Israele, e la trasparenza sulle informazioni relative alle vendite di armi e la richiesta delle dimissioni dei ministri e delle figure istituzionali che sono responsabili e che hanno mentito fino ad adesso sulla questione relativa alla vendita delle armi. Grazie ancora Ines. Possiamo passare con questo alla nostra prossima ospite, che è Samar di European Legal Support Center. Con una breve introduzione, ILSC è un gruppo di supporto che opera in Europa, che si occupa di fornire assistenza legale a palestinesi e che contribuisce anche tramite il lavoro di advocacy a sostenere la lotta palestinese in Europa. Samar è una compagna palestinese che fa parte anche di ILSC, e che ci illustrerà il lavoro che tramite il centro di supporto nell'ambito della lotta, che ci illustrerà il lavoro tramite il centro per il supporto nell'ambito della lotta contro il commercio e il trasporto di armi in Olanda. So hi Samar, thank you for being with us today. We wanted to ask you about what kind of work are you guys, so what is ELSC, and what kind of work are you carrying concerning the arms trade in the Netherlands in particular? The floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. I'll begin by saying that when we speak about the law, especially in relation to Palestine, we're not speaking about neutrality. We know that the law is not some apolitical term of justice that's there. It is political, it is shaped by power. It was not built for the colonized, it was not built for the displaced, not for the besieged. It's there to protect the imperial core. We know that and we recognize that it's there to manage empire, to regulate violence, to make occupation just more bureaucratic. And even when international law acts, it only does so when the rubble is already thick in the dust, when massacres already have happened. And even then, like it stutters, it debates genocide with diplomacy, and it debates starvation while Palestinians countered it. So, just like a disclaimer that at the European Legal Support Center, we do not believe in the law as salvation, but it's there and we use it only as a tool because we know that it can also be turned as a mirror, because when it reflects the brutality that states try to hide, it can enforce a moment of reckoning, not of justice, but of confrontation, exposure, disruption, delay, and sometimes intervention. And that's what we're trying to do. We do this with the full knowledge that the real resistance and the real cost is not paid in courts. It's not even paid in the streets here in Europe, in London or in Milano. It is paid in Gaza by the starved and shattered surviving bodies of Palestinians there, by those who bury their children and refuse to disappear. We know that the resistance is not in The Hague, it's in Rafah and Jabal al-Shuja'iyya. So we recognize that our work at the European Legal Support Center is to listen to that resistance and to ask, what can we do from where we are? How can we make that resistance more powerful? How to shield that resistance, how to amplify it, and how to cut off the tools that's used to destroy this resistance. This is the main and primary role of our legal work. We're not here to claim authority. We're just trying not to be silent while war plans take off with European parts funded by European complicity. So we do not see courtrooms as separate from the picket line or from the port blockade or from what's happening in the Red Sea. We just see it as a complementary site of struggle. We're not trying to appeal to power, we're just trying to confront it. On October 10th of last year, a coalition of Palestinian Dutch organizations, Al-Haq, Mizan, BCHR, SOMO, Kifaya, and also the European Legal Support Center came together to initiate legal proceedings against the Dutch state. We filed summary proceedings, which is a fast-tracked process designed for a situation where harm is not abstract or hypothetical. It's there, it's present, it's urgent, and it's escalating. The fact that we evoked the mechanism is in itself a legal statement. We argued that the Dutch government's continued authorization of arms transfers and military cooperations with Israel amid the plausible case of genocide constitutes an immediate threat to Palestinian lives. So this is not something to be debated through years of litigation. It's a harm that demands intervention now, not after the dust already settles. So we saw in this particular procedure a strategic legal intervention, because while Gaza was being bombed, hospitals and schools targeted, entire families erased, the Dutch state continued to authorize the export and transit of weapons to Israel. And when genocide is even suspected, states have a legal obligation not to comment, but to act. And the Netherlands did not act. And it's in refusal. It's harming the Palestinian people. So under the international law, we rely on three core foundations: the Geneva Conventions, the Genocide Convention, and custom international law, which prohibits aiding or being complicit in serious international crimes. We specifically invoke Common Article 1 of the Geneva Conventions, which requires that states must not only respect international humanitarian law, they also must ensure that others do so, meaning that the Netherlands has a legal duty not only to refrain from violations, but to actively prevent them. And in the context of the Zionist attacks on Gaza, that duty is clear and it's immediate. Under Dutch law, we base our case on Article 6162 of the Civil Code, which outlines the state's duty of care, meaning that the government must not act in ways that expose others to foreseeable unlawful harm. And genocide is not only foreseeable, it's plausible, it's documented, it's unfolding in real time, it's happening now, Gaza. And still, Dutch ports, Dutch airports, Dutch issued permits continue to facilitate the flow of weapons and military components to the Zionist entity. The Dutch government knows exactly what it's doing, and we submitted evidence of export license, of weapons components, of logistical routes, of the Netherlands' role in the F-35 fighter jets supply chain, and still the government responded with indifference to our claims. They said that it's politically sensitive, that we must preserve diplomatic balance, and we prefer quiet dialogue. Uh, the Genocide Convention does not grant exceptions for political sensitivity. States cannot prioritize trade over life. And in doing so, the Dutch government is dismantling the very framework that it claims to uphold. And we see this case, like our case against the Dutch government, it's not about the recognition, but it's about stopping material complicity. We're demanding an immediate arms embargo, full suspension of Dutch weapons exports and transit to the Zionist entity, and an end to military cooperation, including joint exercises and defense contracts between Israel and the Netherlands, a binding ban on settlement trade, goods, services, investment that legitimize colonialism, and a legal declaration of responsibility that the Dutch state is in a breach of both international and domestic law and must immediately come into compliance. And we recognize that these are not radical demands, they are legal obligations that the Netherlands must fulfill. And it's important to note that this case, it's not about the Netherlands only, it's about disrupting the European system of complicity, because we know that behind every bomb, behind every demolished house, every checkpoint, there is a global network of logistics, of finance and flow. And what we're trying to do is to intervene in that network. And we're not operating as isolated. We're coordinated and we operate as part of the bigger movement for Palestine, because we know that legal action does not replace resistance. It's only there to reinforce it. It gives the movement just the legal ground to stand on and to make complicity harder to deny. We know that the courtroom is just one front of this war, and we believe that the law will not liberate us, but we also know that the silence will not protect us either. So with every case we file, with every state that we confront, we make complicity harder to hide, and at this moment, we're not asking for moral statements. What we're expecting is an actual action from the Dutch government, a full embargo on arms trades. And the Nakba isn't going. Like, it feels very surreal to have an event now commemorating the Nakba while it's still unfolding in Gaza. But we also know that we're not here to remember the Nakba, because we can't remember something that's happening in the meantime. We're just here to resist it everywhere it operates, whether it's in Gaza, in The Hague, in our ports, in our courts. It's just like, we know that this particular case is just one very small part of the arc of struggle that's being carried by the Palestinian resistance on the ground, and that's being supported by global solidarity and committed to dismantle the structure that make colonialism profitable. That's just one of the cases that we have against arms trades. There's something else with Maersk, but that's not the time for it. So thank you now.
Thank you very much, Samar. Faccio un breve quadro di quello che Samar ci ha descritto, che è quello del lavoro degli European Legal Support Center, che è un lavoro che è consapevole del fatto che il sionismo non si confronta, cioè non si affronta tramite le azioni legali, che però sono comunque considerate uno strumento che comunque permette di non restare a guardare, almeno per quanto riguarda quegli aspetti e quelle contraddizioni sul piano legale, formale, che le nostre istituzioni nazionali e internazionali hanno. Per cui non vedono le corti di giustizia come qualcosa di separato da tutto quell'insieme di infrastrutture tramite cui Israele opera, però comunque anche quel tipo di azione di supporto legale, di advocacy, è comunque visto come uno strumento che può aiutare a rendere la resistenza palestinese più forte e amplificarla. Poi è stata descritta la situazione in Olanda di complicità delle numerosissime violazioni di diritto sia nazionale che internazionale che loro come struttura di European Legal Support Center stanno cercando di mettere a nudo e di denunciare, ma è una situazione che comunque è comune, cioè non è isolata all'Olanda, ma è comune a praticamente tutti gli altri paesi dell'Europa e le istituzioni europee stesse. E con questo intervento possiamo concludere quella che era la prima sezione della conferenza e possiamo passare alla seconda sezione, che è intitolata embargo popolare e lotta di liberazione. Questa sezione, in questa sezione avremo come ospite Maren di BNC che parla anche in italiano, quindi non dovremo fare la traduzione barra sintesi in italiano. E lascerei direttamente la parola alla nostra ospite. E introduco molto brevemente con le domande, poi presenterà sicuramente meglio la realtà di PNC, che tipo di lavoro si sta facendo. Volevamo fare inizialmente un quadro iniziale su che tipo di lavoro PNC, che noi conosciamo come BDS, sta portando avanti, in particolare in relazione alla causa palestinese. Con riferimento in particolare al trasporto e la vendita di armi e poi vorremmo dare uno sguardo un pochino più particolare al boicottaggio attivo del trasporto di armi e della logistica di guerra nel mondo arabo. Questo come una prima parte, poi possiamo fare, poi come seconda domanda, una seconda parte di questo intervento, vorremmo avere uno sguardo un pochino più specifico su quello che è successo in Marocco anche recentemente, per cui abbiamo sentito delle mobilitazioni che ci sono state sempre riguardo che entrano sempre nell'alea, nell'ambito della campagna Maersk e del trasporto di armi. E possiamo cominciare con questo, poi approfondiamo, faccio una domanda un pochino più specifica sul caso del Marocco. Ti lascio la parola.
Grazie, ma mi hanno appena chiesto se non sarebbe meglio se lasciamo prima la parola a Mohannet, che si è connesso direttamente dalla Palestina e non hai nessun problema dalla mia parte.
Scusatemi, non avevo visto i messaggi e se non è un problema allora facciamo in questo modo. Grazie mille. Hi Mohannet, thank you for being with us today. We know that you had some issues and some problems with today, and you can tell us about it in a while. We thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it. We would like to ask you about youth against settlements. We know that you're a journalist in the West Bank and you're also part of Youth Against Settlements. So if you want to talk briefly about it and tell us what kind of work do you carry with this organization? And we will also like to ask you about what it's like in the occupied lands today, how is life basically, and mostly what's your perspective as a journalist? So what's the role of information in the struggle for liberation, and what's it like to be a journalist under occupation? And I think the events of today kind of tell us about it. So I'll give you, the floor is yours, and thanks again.
Okay, hi Mariam, hi everyone. First of all, thank you for inviting me to talk. I think it's really important to always raise the voice of Palestinians and listen to the people who are living here, who are struggling every day to just survive, get their basic rights. My name is Mohannad, as Mariam said. I'm a Palestinian journalist. I studied journalism in Al Khalil at Hebron University, the University of Al Khalil. And I'm also a human rights activist who became a political activist in 2012. We were just like, I was just like texting with Layla. I was thinking that I won't be able to join today to talk to you because I am at the association now, which is based in Tel Urmeida in Hebron. And Tel Urmeida is the settlement area. It's 20% of the city is occupied. People who have been to Hebron know what I'm talking about. And Hebron is the only city which has settlements in the heart of the city, in the West Bank. So I am literally 0 meters from the settlement now. The settlement is in the backyard of our association's house. So we had one of a settler who lives literally next door, occupied the house of a Palestinian family. He put on his army uniform a few days ago because he's part of the reservist army, because they extend the military operation in Gaza. So they took the soldiers, the younger soldiers, to Gaza now, and they brought us the reservists again. And that's what they did after the 7th of October. You know, different military units came. So this guy is in the reserve army. He's a settler with an army uniform, which means he has more power as a settler. He came to the association to harass us. So he was here for about 2 hours, and with another soldier who is also a settler near in another settlement in the city of Hebron. Yeah, they were trying to push us out of the house because they don't want anybody to be here. For them, they want to kick all of us out so they can take the house and expand the settlement. But what were they saying was interesting. A settler came and said, I will burn you tonight, because tonight they have a holiday called Nakba, which means the fire holiday, where they are going to collect wood and burn the Palestinian flag with the wood, and burn some of other flags of countries that support Palestine and pictures of people who support Palestine. So they're going to do it tonight here. So he came and he said, tonight I'm going to burn your house. And the soldier, and we looked at the soldier and we said, the settler in an army uniform, and we said to him, yeah, but you know, we are being sarcastic, but we're telling him that you're going to protect us. And he said exactly to us, no, when they burn the house and they burn you, I'm going to turn around, give you my back, and pretend I didn't see anything. He said it. He literally said it. And he said that one day we're going to kill all of you because this land is ours. And we said, who gave it to you? He said, I'm a Jew, so I have the right to the land. So we were threatened. This is the third or fourth time in about 2 weeks. We are being threatened to be killed on camera. Like, we are filming and they're telling us that we are going to kill you. I have a gun. I'm going to shoot you. It's not like I want to shoot you. It's like we will. And they took one of the guys out, and they sent him out of the checkpoint and told him he's not allowed to be here, although he lives in the area. So this is literally what happened an hour ago. So I was thinking maybe I won't be able to join. So I texted Layla, I'm sorry, I might not be able to come to join today because I think I might be detained by this settler and not be able to talk to you guys. Luckily, I had to walk longer from a different spot where he is standing, and I entered the house, and I'm talking to you now. So I think everything, all the questions you asked about as a journalist, as a Palestinian activist, as a Palestinian civilian, we're all a target. I'll talk first about the association and what we are and what we do, and then I'll speak more about how we live here as Palestinians, as journalists, because we are all targeted. We are all, we are all being threatened by the Israeli occupation. And you saw what happened in Gaza, the killing of many Palestinian journalists for taking the message of the Palestinian, of their people. So as an association, we are called Youth Against Settlements. We are based in Hebron, in Al Khalil, and we are a non-violent Palestinian and international group. Everything we are doing here is to support the local families who live in 20% of the city of Hebron, where 36,000 Palestinians live, where also our movement as Palestinians there is restricted. As activists, we are being targeted more by the Israeli occupation. So what we mainly are doing here is to strengthening the presence of the Palestinian families in the area, because the families cannot have visitors, first of all, which is, even if it's your relative, your friend, your brother, your mom, and if they don't live inside of this part of the area, or even like H2 is several neighborhoods. So if you live in a different neighborhood, you're not allowed to be in the other neighborhood. Also, it's all H2. So Talur Meida, Shuhada Street, people who live in a different neighborhood, which is part of H2, cannot come to here. So it means they cannot bring workers when they need to fix their kitchen, when they need a plumber, when they need to clean, when they need to paint. So what we do as Palestinian activists being here, we go to them and we help them in doing that. And mainly we do that because we don't want them to feel alone. So we try to strengthen their presence so they don't leave. Because how the occupation works is they expand, so they put pressure on people. They make it impossible for you to live, so you move out. Then they can expand their settlements. They can expand internally and externally and take more Palestinian homes inside and take more lands out of the H2 part of the city. We also give cameras to the families. We train them how to document, the human rights violations. We give when families need legal help, we find them lawyers. We do help them. So we try to help the families as much as we can, and to make them present in their homes and in their land. We also do advocacy, where we talk about, we do political and historical tours for people who come to visit Palestine and Hebron. So when people come to Hebron, we take them into the old city, the Ibrahimi Mosque, the area of H2, to show them what is the reality here, because it is clear, Hebron has the clearest image of apartheid, where when you are walking on the streets, the Israeli army tell you what's your religion, and based on your religion and nationality, they decide where you walk. So if you're Jewish, you have streets, and they allow you to walk on them freely. And if you're a Palestinian, you're prevented. If you're a Palestinian Muslim or Christian, you are prevented. You have to walk between the olive trees fields to reach your house, but you cannot go through the main road. So we try to show the reality to the people who come to Hebron, to make them understand what is really happening here. We also travel to talk about Palestine. We speak in different platforms about Palestine. We work with media a lot when they come and make documentaries. Maybe the recent documentary was where we, as an association, was The Settlers. If you haven't seen it, you must watch it. And it was done by the BBC. And it showed part of the real image, the real, ideology of settlers who live in the West Bank, who attack Palestinians every day. We also have a media team where we document the human rights violations to protect ourselves, because here, living in such an area, we and the settlers are under two different sets of law, which means that we are not equal by law. The settlers are under the civil law, which means they're innocent till the police proves the opposite, which is the normal for any human being around the world. But us, as Palestinians, we're under the Israeli military law, which means we are guilty till we prove the opposite. So we have to prove that we're not guilty to the police not to be arrested. And that is crazy, because when a settler attacks you, they can literally pretend that you attacked them and say to the police, they attacked us. And then you will be arrested, taken to the police station. You have to have an evidence of you being innocent. How can you do that? So that's why when any settler approaches us, we start filming, we start recording to prove that we haven't done anything. Although you're being attacked, they will not take settlers to jail. They are not going to make settlers accountable. Settler violence is not accountable. So the police will not be interested in proving that you're innocent. They're not going to go back to their military cameras to check, because they're not interested. We are being told by the army, if the settlers burn your house, we are not going to help you. We are not going to prevent them. We're not going to do that. They told us we're going to kick you out of this country. And he told us today, we're going to finish with Gaza soon, and next is you. So we're going to kick you out. This was 1 hour ago, not long ago. But we hear this all the time on the media now. We hear it on Israeli, on the mouth of Israeli speakers, on the mouth of Israeli officials, on the mouth of Israeli settlers. They are talking about this openly in front of the world, and the world doesn't care. But if it's a Palestinian who said that, it's a big deal, But as long as it's them saying that, the world is not making it a big deal. So as an association here, mainly our work is to encounter the expansion of Israeli settlements and strengthen the presence of Palestinians and Palestinian families in their own lands and in their own homes. So, for example, in this area, ambulances are not allowed. If you are sick, if you have a critical case, you die, and you cannot get an ambulance because the ambulance needs a special permit from the army. Most of the cases of people who need ambulances in H2 cannot get an ambulance. 2 weeks ago, I was coming up to the association from my house. One of the neighbors was running down. I was like, what's going on? He said, can you help me? His dad fainted, and he wanted me to go with him to the house, carry his dad out of the checkpoint, to the ambulance. Also, the hospital is only 5 minutes by walk from his house. But there is an Israeli checkpoint that prevents the movement of Palestinian cars and ambulances into the area. Also, what kind of danger would an ambulance form, to the existence of Israel? But it is part of a strategy to make it an livable place for Palestinians here. So they leave, and that's what they are doing in Gaza. They're doing this in the West Bank since a very long time. They're doing this in Gaza since a very long time. They're doing this all over the country to the Palestinians, and they're doing their best. They're putting all their efforts to kick all of us out. So for Palestinian journalists, I'm a Palestinian journalist. So the Palestinian journalists are being a target. You see that the army now, when we travel around the West Bank, whenever we go to work, I don't tell the soldiers on the checkpoints that I'm a journalist, because this would make me more of a target for them. So my press ID, I keep it home. I don't show it to the army, because this way they will detain me, they will stop me, they will check my phone, they will go through my belongings and prevent me from continuing. Last time I was trying to go to treat Jenin on one of the checkpoints. When the soldiers saw us, because we had cameras, he sent us back. We had to drive 3 extra hours to go from a different area to reach Jenin, to meet the families who were expelled and displaced from the Jenin refugee camp. So this is how Palestinian journalists are being treated. If you are covering something, and if you're there, they would see the press vest. The press vest makes you a target. They shoot you. They shoot and kill Shirin Abu Akleh in Jenin. And she's not the only one. Our friend Muad Amarni, who was shot in the eye by an Israeli soldier from a short distance, and he lost his eye. He was wearing his press vest, and the soldiers see it. And when the soldiers see the press vest, they target Palestinian journalists. They would either hit you by their car, they would either shoot at you, they would either come in through tear gas and sound bombs at you. And you would see this in many, many videos when the journalists are live on air. They are being a target. The army approaches them and start kicking them or shoot at them. And one of the journalists in Tulkarem, she was shot recently, and the soldier shot her from like 50 meters of distance. He sees she's on camera. He sees she's live. He sees that she's wearing a vest, says press, and he still doesn't care. He literally targeted her and shoot her in the arm. So this is for Palestinian journalists. For Palestinian activists, it's literally the same. We are not allowed as Palestinians to resist the occupation under the Israeli military law in any way. Even we do non-violence, it is illegal by the military law. So we would be going to jail for practicing non-violence, for saying no to the occupation, for saying I want to stay in my house, for cleaning your land. This is non-violence, and you are not allowed to do it as a Palestinian. You're not allowed to practice your right to stay in your own land under the Israeli military law. So this is what they're literally doing to the Palestinians. Now we see that the demolition in the West Bank is rising in a really crazy numbers. I was recently at one of the research centers for land in Al Khalil, in Halhul, and the man told me that the amount of lands the occupation has confiscated since this current government came into position, this settler government, is 20 or 200 times more than what they have confiscated, stole. I don't want to say confiscated, stole, between the year of 1967 and the year of 2023. The land, the amount of houses they have demolished in South Hebron Hills, whether it's in Susia, Twani, whether it's in Area C, or even Area B, which is a place where the Palestinian homes, when they're built, they have a paper. It's legal, even by the Israeli law. They came and demolished these houses. They demolished the houses in Area A. So we feel that as Palestinians now living here, that we are the ones we are being treated like we are the settlers. We are being, sieged in our own cities. We are not allowed to freely move between our cities. And the settlers have the freedom of movement wherever they want. It's not only this. The amount of guns that have been given to Israeli settlers is crazy. Israel Katz, the new Israel defense minister, what he did when he came to position, the first decision he made, he removed the administrative detention for settlers who would form danger to the Palestinians. And how many settlers have been arrested under this rule, by the way, by this law? 8 only. I can give you 50 names of settlers who live only like in Tel Meda. These are forming danger towards Palestinians. They said it openly. They want to kill Palestinians. They're not in jail. So they put 8 of them. They have released them. They have canceled this law, and they released them. So after that, we saw that the amount of settlers attacks, the amount of settlers violence, it's not only, it didn't only increase, but it got much, much more extreme, towards Palestinians. And we see that Ben Gvir, who lives in Hebron, a settler who lives in Kiryat Arba in Hebron, who is the current interior minister in Israel, he distributed 300,000 guns to settlers and Israelis. He literally told them, do whatever you want, kill Palestinians. They say it in a different way, to protect our prisons, to protect ourselves, but to protect yourself from what? From what? From Palestinians who have nothing, no arms, nothing, to shoot them and kick them out? Because that's how they always talk about it. We are trying to defend ourselves. Like this settler who came like an hour ago, what he said when we told him about it, because he said Jews don't do violence, not at all. And we're like, okay, we are going to disagree about this, because what about Baruch Goldstein, the Ibrahim Mosque massacre, 1994, 25th of February, morning prayer? He said, no, he did something good. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, because he prevented a massacre towards Jews. And I was like, listen, you're not talking in the United States, telling them you're bullshit and they believe you. You're talking to me. I'm a Palestinian. I lost 2 cousins in the Ibrahim Mosque massacre, kids. And he said, no, the Palestinians wanted to, kill us, so we killed you before. It's a total lie. They say this narrative in the US when the settlers travel to talk in the United States, in New York or other places. They say that Baruch Goldstein have committed the massacre, killed Palestinians before the Palestinians go out to kill the Jews, because this was the plan of Palestinians, and they were hiding M16s under the carpets of the Ibrahim Mosque. This is what they say. They try to lie to the world, and he comes to lie to me. So I said, are you serious? So, Jews cannot be violent. Jews don't do violence. And he said, all Palestinians are doing violence. All Palestinians are violent. All Palestinians are terrorists. I was like, what about the 2-year-old kid who was killed in Jenin by a sniper fire a few months ago? Is she terrorist too? And they wouldn't give an answer. This is how you embarrass them. And then they stopped talking. 2 hours they were harassing us. But this is what they say. They keep saying that, yeah, the Palestinians are just terrorists. Any Palestinian is terrorist. And, Israelis and Israeli settlers are not violent. They do. As Daniel Levise said in the movie, The Settlers, settlers don't wake up in the morning and think about attacking Palestinians. They try to protect themselves. They attack after they get attacked. In South Hebron Hills, 10th of October, 11th of October, a Palestinian was shot in the stomach from 0 distance by an Israeli settler who approached his house. So you can see all of these things on camera. So let's talk about the settlers who live here. They currently are the Israeli government. They are the ones. Orit Strok, she lives only 500 meters from where I am now. She's the minister of Israeli settlements in the West, in the current Israeli government. We have Ben Gvir, the interior minister, the minister of settlements, the minister of the police, the minister of Smutrich is the minister of also he's the minister of economy, but he has also another name because he's like the minister of the Israeli civil administration in the West Bank. So if you look at their positions, what positions they choose? Money, building settlements, and police. This is how you control the state. And we see how the police react with Palestinian, Israeli police and Israeli army. We see how many settlements they are building and how much money Smutrich is putting into settlements in the West Bank. Because Smutrich was also living here near Tel Meda in the past. He moved to Kdumim later. And we can see that Orit Strok, how much she's doing to support the settlements and build more settlements. So they are the ones who run the government now, and they are super racist. They are talking about their racism openly. They're talking about killing Palestinians, displacing them openly. Like Ben Gvir, when he was traveling to the United States and he stopped in front of the airplane that was taking him, he recorded a video and he said, how do we displace Palestinians? It's easy. We put them on the flight and send them out. That's it. It's a video. He recorded it. He posted it on his Twitter. So they're talking about it openly. So for Palestinians now, surviving is not an easy thing. Just to stay in your own land, it's a huge thing that you're doing, it's too much pressure. It's not an easy thing. Around the West Bank, since October the 7th, they created about 1,000 Israeli barriers between the cities of the West Bank at every single entrance and exit of either a village or a city in the West Bank. There is a blockade where leaving your own city just to out of the city, to get out of the city, could take you 6-7 hours a day during the day. So if you leave in the morning, you could get out in the evening time or afternoon time, late afternoon. And what they do, you see the soldiers sitting like this, eating seeds and looking at you and letting a car pass every 5 minutes. You see, then you get out of the checkpoint and then you go out to the main road, and then you find settlers on the streets attacking Palestinians under the protection of the Israeli army. And then you think about, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to go visit your friend in a different city? It's almost impossible. Okay, staying in your own city. As a young Palestinian, you know, one of the main things my mom is concerned about. She calls me after sunset. She says, "Where are you? Come home." You know why? Because she knows at night the Israeli army comes into the city, into Hebron, arrest Palestinians, detain Palestinians, shoot at Palestinians, intimidate Palestinians, and she says, "Don't go out late." So whenever I'm home and I like 11 p.m., I want to go to the supermarket to get something, she sometimes prevents me. And I'm 32 years old. And I don't say anything back because I know she wants to protect me. It's not something she can control. If I was living in Italy, my mom wouldn't have to do that. She wouldn't have to think of that. And you can see this in every Palestinian mother, how she struggles when her son doesn't answer his phone. When she hears somebody got killed in the city, she would think it's her son. When settlers attack, she would think, okay, maybe it's my son who got attacked by settler. Because you live in a continuous stress, whether you are a Palestinian journalist, whether you are an activist, whether your problem is that you are a Palestinian. Being a Palestinian makes you a lesser human being for them, makes you a target for them, and makes you okay to kill. Dehumanizing Palestinians, we are seeing it on Israeli media, we are seeing it everywhere. Dehumanizing Palestinians to make Israelis think that killing a cockroach is more difficult than killing a Palestinian. And you see it when they come and tell you children are the future terrorists. You know, in Hebrew, they put posters everywhere around the West Bank. And in Hebrew, it says, which means to fire today the terrorist of tomorrow. So, which means that they're talking about children, they're talking about kids, to fire them, kick them out of schools, whether they live in Jerusalem or they live in 48, to kick them out of these schools, not to give them the right to education, not to let them freely move, you know? To do all of this, dehumanizing Palestinians is one of the main things that until today, the Israeli media is working on, and they do it a lot. It's not like a few hours a day. It's like most of their, programs are done there to dehumanize Palestinians. And that makes the soldiers feel that they can kill Palestinians. It's okay. You know, once, it's a crazy story I'm going to tell you. I was crossing the checkpoint, and then it was last year, and the soldier stopped me. He was 18 years old maybe, and then he asked me, "Do you speak Hebrew?" And I said, "Yeah, I speak Hebrew. Tell me what you want." And he said, "Listen, can you tell me how to say this and this and this in Arabic?" Which is literally, take off your shirt, give me your ID, stop, don't move. And I was like, "Why do you need them?" He said, "Yeah, to be able to talk to people." I said, "This is not talking to people. This is ordering people to, occupying people." So I was like, okay. And then he said, "What do you think?" He wanted to talk about politics. And I was okay. He started talking, and he was telling me about, he was telling me about, what do you think of us? I said, "You're an occupation entity. You're occupiers. This is what you are." And this is the first time since October the 7th, I spoke openly about politics in front of a soldier, because it's super dangerous. And then he was saying a lot of crazy things. And I said, this is racist. What you're saying is crazy. And he said, "We're the most moral army in the world." And I was like, "Yeah, 50,000 people killed in Gaza most of them are children and women, tell that you're the most moral army in the world. Are you lying to yourself or what? And then he said to me something really crazy. He said, my dream is to kill an Arab. And I was, are you serious? He said, yes. And I said, okay, why don't you do it? You've got the M16, you've got the power. Why don't you shoot anybody now? And he said, because we are a state of law. Like, we are a country with law. I was like, really? Do you want me to tell you names of soldiers who killed Palestinians? Stories? They haven't gone to jail. Don't tell me that you're a state of law. And then he said, and I said to him, listen, if now Netanyahu goes out on media and says to you, to the soldiers, do whatever you want, what's the first thing you're going to do? Or your commanders told you, do whatever you want, what you're going to do? He said, the first thing I'm going to do is shoot an Arab. They don't like to say Palestine, so they say Arabs. And I was like, okay, would you shoot me if you saw me first? And he said, yes. So this is how we live as Palestinians. This is the kind of mentality we are facing as Palestinians, kind of beliefs of those kind of people, that they think that shooting and killing a Palestinian is just okay. Some of them, he's telling me his dream is to kill a Palestinian. So it's like his dream, people's dreams are to become a doctor. People's dreams are to become an engineer, to travel, to see the world. This guy's dream was 18, is to kill Palestinians. So maybe you have other questions to ask, but yeah, maybe we can see the questions from other people too.
All right. Thank you very much, Mohannad. We would have liked to ask you more questions, but unfortunately we have a very strict schedule, and we are really sorry about the events of today. And as you said, it's not just today's events. And we hope that you and your family stay safe. And we thank you very, very, very much for being with us here today. Thank you a
No,
lot.
thank you for hosting us. It's very important. We want people to do as much as they can to protest, because we always say it, that without the unlimited, unconditional support that comes from the West, whether it's Europe or the US, to Israel can never maintain its occupation. And you have to know that your governments, especially Giorgia Meloni, support to Israel, and a lot of other Western diplomats and Western presidents, their support to Israel is making Israel continue what it's doing to us. So we want people to be active, to do as much as they can to protest, to end the genocide that is taking place today, the new Nakba that is taking place today in Gaza or the West Bank. So this is what we want people to do. But thank you for hosting me.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure talking today.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ok ragazzi, siamo super indietro con la scaletta, però possiamo procedere con il prossimo intervento, che è di Maren, che ringraziamo tantissimo per la pazienza, ci scusiamo per aver rimandato. Gli eventi che ci sono stati sono quelli che ha descritto anche Mohannet, che sono stati attaccati oggi da un colono stanziato lì vicino alla loro casa. Per questione di tempo non riprendo nel dettaglio la domanda di prima. Sicuramente Maren, la prima domanda era sul lavoro di BDS e di BNC più in generale, e poi se vogliamo andare più nel dettaglio sul caso del Marocco da novembre in poi. Ti lascio la parola.
Sì, grazie. E grazie per tutte le traduzioni che hai fatto. Io non so come, come fai a riassumere tutto così. Bene, penso che solamente ritornando rapidamente alla questione del movimento di BDS e un po' con la differenza fra BNS e BDS. ehm, Penso che una delle cose fondamentali, e questo me lo sono detta anche oggi mattina quando mi sono svegliata, e sono 77 anni di Nakba, non sembra che abbiamo la capacità di fermare questo massacro continuo. Al contrario, mi sono anche ricordata che in realtà quante cose, quanti passi abbiamo già fatto avanzando. E il 2005, quando dalla Palestina nasce il chiamato al boicott, disinvestimento e sanzioni, BDS. Penso che era proprio questo spartiacque dove prima avevamo un movimento di solidarietà, di contestazione, di denuncia. E dopo il 2005 si è trasformato in un movimento che ci dà questo, grazie a questo chiamato palestinese, al BDS, ci dà la possibilità di veramente cambiare qualcosa, di cambiare le politiche, di costruire dalla nostra rabbia, dalla nostra frustrazione e anche dalla nostra solidarietà e dal nostro amore, qualcosa che con una strategia può passo a passo cambiare le cose. Non siamo esattamente in momenti rivoluzionari, sicuramente non in Italia, però passo per passo, con una strategia pianificata, con un lavoro di costruire una egemonia culturale, la capacità di cambiare anche l'intendimento delle persone di quello che sta passando in Palestina, possiamo costruire la pressione per cambiare le cose. E sono abbastanza vecchia che mi ricordo il 2005 quando stavo già in Palestina e questo chiamato si è lanciato e all'epoca quasi nessuno pensava possibile boicottare Israele, arrivare a sanzioni, arrivare a disinvestimenti. E molte delle organizzazioni che oggi anche in Italia aderiscono agli spazi liberi di apartheid e fanno boicottaggio, all'epoca non volevano nemmeno prendere in bocca la parola apartheid, ma abbiamo fatto dei cambi, abbiamo costruito qualcosa e per vedere un poco positivamente la situazione anche. Solamente negli ultimi giorni, solamente parlando dell'embargo militare, possiamo già parlare di tre vittorie. Si è riuscito in Olanda, che anche lì non stiamo in Sudafrica o altri paesi più pro-palestinesi, si è riusciti a fermare il porto di Anversa fronte alla ZIM, la compagnia marittima di Israele che ha trasportato rifornimenti militari a Israele. A Ravenna si è già da tempo, per ora è diventato pubblico, bloccato questi 14 tonnellate di armamenti per Israele e in Spagna sì, c'è molto da fare, ma quello che ci ha contato Anna, anche lì si è riuscito a bloccare un importante contratto con Israele e quindi le cose stanno avanzando, stanno avanzando per tutti questi 20 anni di lavoro di BDS e il BNC e il Comitato Nazionale Palestinese, poi il boicott, disinvestimento e sanzioni, che nel 2007 si crea per creare un'unità palestinese intorno al movimento di BDS. E quindi lì è un po' la differenza. E in questo senso lì stiamo intentando di costruire campagne globali, coordinazione globale perché tutte le varie forze e iniziative anche si possono coordinare, come la questione anche delle F-35, dove da un lato hai il lavoro fondamentale del PYM con il nuovo relatorio che stiamo aspettando ora, però anche già il lavoro che si è fatto di varie organizzazioni legali nel mondo che hanno creato varie cause legali in Olanda, in Danimarca, in Canada su questa questione delle F-35, questi jet che Israele usa per bombardare Gaza e non solo, Libano, Siria e più in là. E penso che in questo senso, e sono molto felice di avere questo spazio qui, L'Italia è al centro, è letteralmente al centro del Mediterraneo e al centro di molte delle questioni, non solamente della trasferenza marittima delle armi, perché la maggior parte delle armi va per mare, perché sono grandi, è più facile che attraverso gli aeroporti e l'Italia con tutti i suoi porti in mezzo al Mediterraneo è fondamentale qui. Però anche la questione della produzione e dell'esportazione delle armi per Israele. E lì l'Italia ha un ruolo fondamentale, non è solamente a Leonardo che tutti conoscono. BDS Italia ha fatto uno censimento e ha visto che ci sono più di 60 imprese militari o che producono componenti militari in Italia per Israele e anche quelli poi devono uscire specialmente per gli aeroporti, però soprattutto per gli porti. In questo momento che la van der Leyen ha lanciato questo mega progetto di riarmo dell'Europa, si tratta anche non solamente della esportazione di prodotti militari, componenti usati nel sistema militare di repressione, lì ci sono le carceri e tutta la struttura di repressione israeliana, però anche la compra di armi da Israele per parte dell'Italia e degli altri stati europei che non è minore perché, come Anna ha detto, questo significa non solamente che stiamo finanziando con i soldi cittadini la industria militare che poi utilizza questi soldi per ammazzare più e reprimere più e più efficacemente il popolo palestinese e continuare sul genocidio che ogni giorno è più drammatico, però allo stesso tempo ci importiamo anche le tecnologie, le metodologie e le ideologie israeliane nelle nostre istituzioni. Ieri in Italia, nel Parlamento, si è discusso 5 minuti per decidere che si compra 5 droni israeliani di più. Non so esattamente quanto costano, ma è abbastanza dinero che si è speso lì in una decisione, una discussione di 5 minuti. Un altro esempio è il caso della Tech, che è un'impresa che si chiama hackeaggio etico, però che fondamentalmente, stando a Modena, fondamentalmente prende la tecnologia di sorveglianza e di repressione israeliana, la importa in Italia e soprattutto con un governo come quello che c'è l'Italia oggi si vede evidentemente come queste ideologie si combaciano e si rinforzano e penso che lì questo discorso che l'apartheid, il genocidio, il colonialismo israeliano non solamente uccide al popolo palestinese, però fa male a tutti i popoli. Penso che questo è un altro esempio fondamentale. E la questione è un poco, ehm, e cerco di riassumere un po' le cose perché tutti quanti sicuramente sono stanchi ora di ascoltare, sarebbe un po' quel che fare. Che possiamo fare in Italia? Che si può fare in Italia per stare e prendere questo posto al centro del lavoro che si sta facendo in tutto il Mediterraneo per impedire che il Mediterraneo continui a essere questo spazio di morte. Pensavamo sempre dal Mediterraneo allo spazio di morte per quello che riguarda i migranti che stanno morendo ogni giorno ogni settimana nel Mediterraneo, però ora sappiamo anche che il Mediterraneo è uno spazio di morte per il Mediterraneo che passano tutte le armi e tutta la tecnologia e componenti militari per Israele. E già a tempo si è costruito anche una rete di BDS mediterranea. Già esiste una rete di BDS in Europa e una in Africa, ora abbiamo creato questa rete mediterranea giusto per affrontare questa questione, vedere come si può coordinare le iniziative nei porti, nei paesi in questo senso. E quello che evidentemente è la cosa più fondamentale, e anche in Italia già si sta cominciando, è costruire le relazioni nei porti, con i portuari, con chi lavora nel porto. In alcuni porti già esiste, in altri no, servono. E lì se qualcuno sta in una città portuale che si mobilizza per costruire per primero relazioni. La situazione dei portuari in Italia, che ormai sono tutti precarizzati, sono tutte in cooperative, non è facile, però quello che possono fare sicuramente è darci informazioni, aiutarci in questo senso e come in alcuni, nel porto di Genova già si è fatto bloccare il porto, costruire proteste e fare sì che capiamo quello che sta succedendo, perché nessuno ce lo dice se non abbiamo persone dentro dei porti. Questa era la ragione per la quale nel porto di Ravenna si è riuscito a bloccare questi 14 tonnellate, perché qualcuno ha parlato. E di lì anche lo sforzo di cercare di costruire porti senza armi, che a questo punto non importa dove vanno, se per questi porti non possono passare armi, significa anche che non possono passare per Israele. Per l'altra vertente, a parte di vedere che attraverso i porti non passano le armi, e l'altra questione che esiste quello che chiamiamo una flotta del genocidio, una genocide fleet, che fondamentalmente la Maersk, che quando porta le sue armi a Israele o le armi degli Stati Uniti a Israele utilizza sempre le stesse navi. Se prendiamo altri esempi come quelli che portano il carbone e il petrolio a Israele, sono sempre le stesse navi. E si sta costruendo un listato di queste navi e quello che stiamo costruendo è dire, ce l'avete insegnato voi con la famosa Shadow Fleet della Russia, dove voi avete costruito un listato e voi, l'Unione Europea, ha costruito un listato, una lista di navi che fanno il trasporto per Russia e il suo petrolio e gas fondamentalmente. E per il coinvolgimento con eh, questo trasferimento, le navi sono proibite nei porti europei. E noi diciamo la stessa cosa, o peggio ancora, questo non è una flotta che trasporta petrolio o gas a prezzi più alti o più bassi di quelli che vuole l'Unione Europea. Questo è una flotta del genocidio, è una flotta che sostenta il genocidio. E queste navi, non importa se in un momento specifico portano armi o non portano armi, fanno parte di questa flotta e devono essere proibite. E quindi facendo anche un lavoro con le istituzioni e con i porti per dire queste navi non passano e non importa quali sono il cargo in questo specifico momento, perché come già Anna ce l'ha raccontato, il problema è sempre che poi ti dicono, ma non sappiamo qual è il cargo e non lo possiamo scoprire. Boh, non importa. Questa nave è parte di una flotta di genocidio e non può attraccare. E penso in questo sentito, con questi vari livelli di strategie, riusciamo, speriamo anche, di costruire sempre più difficoltà alla trasportazione delle armi a Israele. E già abbiamo le prime notizie di Israele che effettivamente stanno in alcuni casi con una difficoltà di rifornimento delle loro armi e del loro arsenale militare. Non è lo sufficiente se no non stiamo nella situazione nella quale stiamo, però dobbiamo continuare a fare questo lavoro e continuare a costruire movimentazione nei porti, nelle società e anche, come abbiamo sentito, nelle istituzioni. Non so se Mariam, vuoi che parlo un po' più direttamente di quello che era il lavoro in Marocco o mi fermo qui e mi fai un'altra domanda?
Allora, se riusciamo a fare anche un breve focus sul Marocco, sugli eventi degli scorsi mesi, quello che è successo a novembre, quello nelle scorse settimane, sarebbe utile capire, come è stata costruita la mobilitazione, che parti ha riguardato, magari anche che ruolo ha svolto BDS Marocco, in questo magari anche un breve punto sulla repressione che sappiamo esserci stata, anche molto brevemente in qualche minuto, ecco. Grazie.
Sì, e anche lì in Marocco la mobilitazione in realtà comincia già qualche anno fa, quando Marocco apertamente, non è che non era prima copertamente, ma apertamente normalizza relazioni con Israele, comincia a avere gli accordi militari anche con Israele e anche importando le armi israeliane per la sua propria repressione e la sua propria colonizzazione. E lì nasce già il fronte contro la normalizzazione, the Anti-Normalization Front in Marocco, che poi come parte tiene il BDS Marocco e questo fronte contro la normalizzazione e tutta la lotta in Marocco si mette dentro della logica della antinormalizzazione. Già a tempo raccoglie una vasta gamma di società civile marocchina e quando poi si scopre che per la prima volta in novembre, quando si riesce che la trasferenza da un barco che viene, di una nave che viene dagli Stati Uniti e poi loro trasferiscono nel Mediterraneo le armi, i componenti a un'altra nave che poi porta attraverso il Mediterraneo o a Haifa o a Ashdod. E all'inizio questo si faceva in Spagna, in Algeciras, e con la mobilitazione che si è riuscito a fare lì, eh, Maersk ha deciso di andare dall'altro lato del Mediterraneo e fare questa trasferenza dei componenti militari in Tangier. Si è fatto una prima mobilitazione anche con molta repressione come anche questa volta, dove non solamente la repressione da un lato e l'attacco fisico nelle strade contro le proteste del fronte contro la normalizzazione di BDS Marocco, però anche con una forte mobilizzazione mediatica di denunce, attacchi, minacce e anche menzogne, dicendo che tutto quello che si sta dicendo non è vero e che questo è un attacco all'interesse nazionale per parte del fronte contro la normalizzazione. Tutte queste tattiche in realtà a livello di opinione pubblica non hanno spostato la posizione del popolo marocchì, però evidentemente fanno parte, una gran parte della repressione che intimidisce. La peggior parte evidentemente sono gli arresti che si è visto in questo caso. In novembre e questa volta anche un compagno che è stato arrestato, però e evidentemente gli licenziamenti anche di chi ha deciso di mettere da parte sul proprio interesse e rischiarsi il lavoro e il sostento, fanno parte di tutto un sistema di repressione da parte del governo marocchino e delle autorità marocchine e penso che la lotta di BDS Marocco è per questo ancora più importante e l'appoggio e di lavorare insieme per far sì che in nessuno di questi porti in- nel Mediterraneo possano attraccare queste navi è assolutamente fondamentale. E più riusciamo anche in altre parti, in Spagna, in Italia, in Fos de Mer, in Francia, che era parte della mobilitazione ora un mese fa, dove sono riusciti a bloccare prima uno di questi navi che doveva prendere a Tangier i componenti militari e lì dopo un blocco di un giorno poi Maersk ha deciso di non utilizzare più questo porto. Si può ipotizzare che era per questo, perché prima lo utilizzarono sempre. Quindi far sì che si torna una politica di vari porti, di vari stati, di non lasciar passare questa flotta del genocidio, sarà anche probabilmente la migliore protezione e appoggio per quello che i compagni e le compagne in Marocco stanno facendo.
Ringraziamo tanto Maren per la spiegazione molto, molto dettagliata e anche quest'ultimo quadro che ci hai fatto sulla situazione in Marocco, che è sicuramente molto utile. Quindi grazie tanto, è stato un piacere ospitarti in questa conferenza e ringraziamo di nuovo tutti gli ospiti che sono stati qua oggi con noi. Molti di questi hanno dovuto lasciare per altri impegni. E possiamo avviarci alle conclusioni con Leila, a cui passo la parola.
Buonasera, mi sentite? Sì, mi accodo anch'io ai ringraziamenti e vorrei fare solo qualche commento conclusivo per sottolineare l'importanza dell'incontro di oggi e di quello che dobbiamo fare da qui in avanti. Innanzitutto, noi abbiamo come organizzazione, come Giovani Palestinesi, abbiamo portato avanti un percorso con altre realtà della diaspora, soprattutto quelle realtà che si trovano a militare in Europa abbiamo iniziato un percorso di costruzione con delle realtà che si trovano in Francia, in Belgio, in Spagna, in Portogallo, in Inghilterra e anche in altri paesi. E appunto questo percorso ci ha portato a chiamare una settimana di mobilitazione per la Nakba. Come forse alcuni di voi avranno visto, abbiamo lanciato un appello congiunto e per noi questo appello congiunto è l'inizio di qualcosa di importante. È l'inizio di un percorso appunto che vuole ricostruire un fronte di resistenza al sionismo anche in Europa da parte della diaspora occidentale che si trova in Occidente. Noi sappiamo, e gli interventi di questa sera l'hanno detto in molti modi molto molto puntuali, noi sappiamo che il sionismo colpisce in molti modi il nostro popolo. Abbiamo sentito la testimonianza diretta dalla Palestina, abbiamo sentito le testimonianze di coloro che si sono mobilitati anche altrove. Noi sappiamo che il sionismo ha molte facce ed è in molti luoghi e così noi andiamo a colpire il sionismo in altrettanti luoghi. Questo è quello che stiamo cercando di fare. Come ha detto Ines nell'intervento che ci ha precedute, noi come giovani palestinesi non vogliamo porci all'interno di questo movimento di lotta come un movimento di solidarietà. Noi siamo e crediamo di essere parte attiva della liberazione e noi vogliamo rivendicare il nostro ruolo di componente attiva di questo movimento di liberazione nazionale, accanto e a fianco al nostro popolo in Palestina. E quindi noi crediamo che le modalità per affrontare il sionismo siano molte e dobbiamo accogliere il nostro ruolo storico, il ruolo che ci offre anche il fatto proprio di essere in diaspora. Noi sappiamo che la diaspora vive anche sulla propria pelle una repressione molto forte e per concludere questa conferenza vorrei ricordare alcuni casi che stiamo vedendo proprio in diaspora in questi mesi, in queste settimane. Noi sappiamo che alcuni dei compagni con cui ci siamo mobilitati, con cui abbiamo chiamato questa settimana di attivazione per la Nakba continua, stanno subendo una repressione incredibile in Francia. I nostri compagni di Urgence Palestine stanno subendo una repressione che vuole addirittura sciogliere il loro collettivo, la loro organizzazione. Il loro collettivo vuole essere sciolto dalle istituzioni francesi perché le istituzioni francesi sanno perfettamente che l'organizzazione, anzi la riorganizzazione dei palestinesi in diaspora è un pericolo. È un pericolo perché va a destituire quell'ordine che si è fondato sulla protezione del sionismo, degli interessi del sionismo da parte delle istituzioni europee, da parte dei paesi come la Francia, ma come anche l'Italia. E anche in Italia stiamo vedendo dei casi di repressione incredibili, come il caso di Hanan Yaish, che sappiamo benissimo, conosciamo benissimo questo caso, ma sappiamo che questo caso dovrebbe arrivare sulle bocche di chiunque abiti in questo paese. Hanan è un partigiano palestinese imprigionato in Italia per volere delle istituzioni israeliane. Il grado di complicità delle istituzioni italiane con le istituzioni coloniali israeliane si sta mostrando in tutta la sua chiarezza. E il pericolo che noi palestinesi, riorganizzandoci, dimostriamo a queste istituzioni è alto ed è per questo che continuano a reprimerci e continueranno a cercare di reprimerci, ma noi crediamo che gli esempi di lotta che ci sono stati portati stasera in realtà ci offrono delle chance per essere solo più pronti, più organizzati, più preparati e appunto per avere più strumenti per continuare a lottare. Perché l'abbiamo detto tante volte e lo ribadiamo che la repressione che stiamo subendo in molte forme diverse non ci spaventa, ma sappiamo che per adempiere al nostro compito noi dobbiamo essere sempre più organizzati e sempre più preparati. E quindi noi crediamo che tutti gli elementi di cui si è parlato stasera, gli elementi che ci ha portato chi ha parlato direttamente dalla Palestina, gli elementi che ci ha portato chi ha parlato di un lavoro legale, di un lavoro che fa pressione sulle istituzioni, così come di un lavoro invece popolare che fa pressione dal basso sono tutti elementi che vanno ad unirsi, sono tutti elementi che devono andare a ricongiungersi all'interno di che cosa? All'interno di una lotta per il movimento di liberazione, che è anche una lotta transnazionale. Ed è per questo che noi abbiamo chiamato questa settimana di mobilitazione ed è per questo che noi abbiamo chiamato anche la conferenza di oggi. Per concludere, sottolineiamo ancora una volta che il filo rosso che voleva legare le giornate di mobilitazione che abbiamo organizzato e che continuiamo a organizzare è anche appunto quello di affrontare quella gamba dell'imperialismo, come diceva la compagna in apertura, che è il sistema della logistica. Appunto, è stato ripetuto in molti interventi, senza la logistica tutta la macchina bellica si ferma, non può andare avanti. E quindi noi crediamo che anche in Italia si debbano trovare delle strategie, delle modalità per affrontare questa macchina bellica. E noi crediamo che come diaspora palestinese in questo momento questo sia il nostro compito, il compito che ci lascia la storia della rivoluzione palestinese, perché così come la Nakba è un processo continuo, anche la nostra rivoluzione, la nostra liberazione è un processo continuo che sta continuando proprio ora, in varie forme, nelle forme dei partigiani odierni come Anan, nelle forme delle organizzazioni che provano a mobilitarsi contro l'imperialismo e le sue varie forme. Ed è questo che stiamo provando a fare. Dunque, per concludere, chiamiamo tutte le realtà e tutte le persone, insomma, ad unirsi a questo fronte di lotta, che, come abbiamo detto tante volte, non è un fronte di lotta che coinvolge solo ed esclusivamente la causa palestinese, ma è un fronte di lotta, quello della nostra lotta di liberazione, che va a attaccare direttamente quel sistema imperialista che colpisce tutte e tutti, quel sistema del capitalismo che opprime tutte le persone che si trovano anche a vivere in Europa in una condizione di precarietà, in una condizione di povertà, in una condizione obbligata da questo sistema. E dunque noi rilanciamo la mobilitazione da qui in avanti, che sarà una mobilitazione appunto transnazionale, una mobilitazione ancora più preparata di quanto è stata finora. E concludo ricordando, come spero che nei vari appuntamenti territoriali che insomma si stanno tenendo in questo momento verrà ricordato, che un primissimo appuntamento di lotta che avremo tra meno di una settimana sarà quello della prossima udienza del compagno del partigiano di cui abbiamo parlato, di Anani Aish, che si terrà il 21 maggio all'Aquila, e quindi noi ci vediamo già il 21 maggio per il prossimo appuntamento di lotta. E vi ringrazio ancora tutte e tutti e grazie mille anche alle compagne che hanno fatto la moderazione e l'intervento di apertura e ci si vede in piazza.